really great day or a great time for our influence, as Alfie Allen is now an award-nominated actor. Game of Thrones Season 8 is possibly one of the most celebrated award-nominated things ever.
Yep.
And no one cares about X-Men, so we've done our job.
Mission accomplished. Mike and Matt's Excellent Adventures, the Wheel Breakers, it's all worked out well. But this is Big Spideas. I stealthed this into an intro at episode 6 of our Spider-Man podcast. I am Matt Waters. I'm joined by Mike Thomas, the creator of the name Big Spideas, who on our last episode or on our Venom episode or something was like, is it not Great Spideas? But who knows? Are you over the name and how are you?
I'm disappointed. I feel like we could have done better with the name. We struggled with this name.
It was like the first name we ever had.
Who knows? If that joke didn't happen, we might not be doing any of this.
As you can read about in my weepy essay on IntoTheRealWorld.com.
Oh, that was so sweet. That was so sweet.
There you go. But speaking of so sweet, I guess, Spider-Man Far From Home.
Sure.
We do this Spider-Man podcast. I also do a Marvel podcast with Ben Phillips, Ben and Matt's Marvelous Journey. So we're going to focus, when we do our episode on this, on like the MCU side of things, and you and I are going to knuckle down into like this as a Spider-Man movie. And obviously we want to talk about our thoughts about the movie overall, but also, you know, because we did the Raimi trilogy as like one episode, and then we compared that with the Webb duology, the Amazing films. So I kind of want to pair this with Homecoming and like gauge where we're both at with this vision of Spider-Man with Tom Holland and like the general vibe and how we feel about that after this. If any new thoughts come forward about Homecoming and like where we feel it will go going forward, and if we're excited and what not. How does that sound?
Sure. That thing we decided on long in advance of this recording is great.
Big picture though, what did you think of Far From Home?
I think it's really great that they targeted the World Cup fans so heavily by making sure there was no doubt that one scene in the Netherlands that definitely was not filmed in the Netherlands took place in the Netherlands, because everyone was wearing orange and nothing about orange.
Sure.
That to me was the big take-home message, is that this scene is happening in the Netherlands.
And then there's all the coloured tulips.
Big picture. It's kind of funny. Because we had discussed like, okay, we'll focus on Spider-Man, and you and Ben will do MCU stuff with it. And I think that's a really great idea. The problem is all the most relevant stuff felt like it was MCU stuff. Like,
sure,
it almost felt. Oh no, and I'm not to like say we won't touch on those things, but it's more just like it's more of my comment on the film is that this felt very MCU-y, for better and for worse, or worse, I guess, depending on your perspective.
Do you think it feels more or less MC or the same as Homecoming did?
I mean,
because that film has Iron Man in it and stuff, and this.
But Iron Man is looming so heavily.
Oh, of course, of course.
It was almost like he was in it. I'm surprised that they resisted having like an old video of him that like a lost recording that they didn't know existed or something, like didn't pop up in the movie.
In Peter's mask or in the glasses or something.
Yeah. I mean, that was shockingly restrained for them. Yeah, I mean, just like as a Spider-Man movie, it mostly still kind of a plucky underdog. I really like that they put him in a foreign country. I thought that was neat. Like, we've seen Spider-Man in New York in what feels like 500 movies.
Yeah.
I think the Spider-Man movies, more than any other superhero series, have felt the most repetitive to me, in that it's Spider-Man, he's down on his luck, he's in New York, there is a new villain, and Aunt May and MJ get in trouble.
Yeah.
It just kind of felt like that's what we've been doing nonstop, so it felt very fresh to be overseas.
Yeah. One of the things I liked about Homecoming was that they resisted skyscrapers. You know, they did more like flat ground and like the suburbs, and they and this is a far more extreme version of that. But yeah, they are trying to not just make another Raimi film.
New York is huge. Like, it cannot be emphasized how huge New York is, and Manhattan is such a tiny little slither of New York in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that they shouldn't do stuff in Manhattan or it doesn't make for cool scenes. It's just like, New York is fucking huge. There are 5 boroughs, 4 real ones. We don't have to count Staten Island. And it's just, there's literally and metaphorically so much ground to cover.
Yeah.
But having said that, I thought it was kind of fun to put him out of his comfort zone a little bit.
Definitely.
Other than that, like the villain of the week, I knew Mysterio was a villain. guess like 5% of me was like, okay, maybe there's a really tiny chance they're just going with something different here. But also, it's like, this is such an excellent parody of anti-hero, like superhero stuff, especially MCU stuff. I'm like, there's no way this disingenuous and flat superhero is actually a superhero. Like, it was like a parody of an MCU superhero.
And I also want to say that maybe Jake was playing it quite wooden.
Yeah,
because the guy was meant to be like pretending.
It wasn't so much a criticism of. I mean, I think what they were trying to do is what they did. They committed to it for so long that it kind of like dragged a little bit for me, just because I'm like, man, when is like the actual Jake Gyllenhaal gonna stand up? And then, the bar scene is clearly him having the most fun.
Yeah.
And
for me, they couldn't have gotten to that bit fast enough. Like they trimmed some stuff out to get them to Europe quicker, and I wish they'd trimmed. I mean, it's not that Europe is bad. Like when I walked out, my thought was, they should have just taken this Euro trip and turned it into like a thing for their Disney streaming service as like a Freaks and Geeks style like half-hour comedy. It's just like, here's this class like fucking around in Europe, because it's not that it's bad or boring. It's kind of like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like a big summer blockbuster movie until like the Mysterio stuff really takes off. Like that big reveal, it's like, okay, here we go. I don't think it was bad, as I said. Like, it's just, I don't think I ever really want to see it again. That first hour, maybe.
I would push back a little bit in that I think that was probably the most fun part of the movie to me. And I think it's the part of the movie that they felt the most comfortable doing. And everything else kind of just felt obligatory in a lot of ways.
A little bit, yeah.
And also, like, Peter, I literally almost just said Tony. Peter becoming the new Tony Stark, it's like, this is a big, like, I guess, controversy a little bit. Him having access to all the technology in the world, like, even in this down and like, it's just kind of like, it's not really Spider-Man. No. And it's not so much that it's bad, it's just, why not just make a young Iron Man character then?
Yeah,
you know, like,
I think that's the big thing they're trying to hammer home is, he doesn't want to be the next Tony, and like Happy even tells him, you don't have to be the next Tony, but like by the end of it, that is thrust upon him as, this is your legacy. And it's like, for better or worse, mirroring I Am Iron Man with, he is Peter Parker. It's like, after he resisted it all. And I thought that was, and shout out to them getting J.K. Simmons back.
By far the loudest reaction in the theater.
I had kind of sussed out that was happening based on some of the buzz that was going. I was like, there's only one person that could get this kind of reaction, and I'm guessing and there he is. Welcome, though, and turning him into a bit of a Alex Jones type guy instead of a newspaper mogul, I thought was a good beat. Yeah, it leaves them in an interesting position, which, Ben and I will discuss. But, like, I love this cast. Like, I love this group of kids. I thought they gave Ned a lot more to do, and his little really fast relationship was kind of funny, and like I think Flash is great as like a modern douchebag kid instead of like the stereotypical movie jock, and Zendaya is amazing as far as I'm concerned. It's just, I don't know, I kept just being like, when are we gonna get to the big superhero shit? And like, we've discussed this a lot, and like the big superhero shit is very cookie cutter at this point, but I also on some level I'm just so trained to expect it that when it's not there, I feel like antsy, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a reflection of their conditioning, though. Like, I almost wish the whole film had none of it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think it would be cool to take this group of kids and just do a high school fucking comedy show where you never see him in the Spider-Man suit, or if you do, it's because he's, like, just got back from being Spider-Man, just follow this group of kids and these teachers around. I'd be down for that in a sort of long-form TV show format. It's just in a 2-hour movie, I was kind of like I said, it involuntarily.
When you know they're going to do it, it's not like you thought this movie was going to have none of that stuff in it, right?
Oh
like,
no, sure.
So what I'm saying is like when you know they're going to do it, it's kind of like, well, let's make that meaningful. Let's try to not make it feel obligatory. And I don't think they did a good job with that.
Yeah, and like Martin Starr was great with like his wife pretended that she got blipped and left him. I thought that was really good.
I loved how it wasn't just Martin Starr playing the stock Martin Starr.
Yeah,
that was the first time I feel like he's done something different in his entire career that I've seen.
Yeah, definitely. He has always. Just
it was the first time I thought Martin Starr was actually acting. I was kind of surprised by that. JB Smoove is amazing. If you haven't watched later seasons of Curb Your Enthusiasm, that dude is just so fucking funny.
Yeah.
Jake, it felt kind of like a waste. Like we're both pretty big Jake Gyllenhaal fans, or Gyllenhaal fans.
Oh, yeah.
So for him, one, to just be like, it's kind of like Cate Blanchett. I mean, I guess it's like, if you're only going to use them once, at least kill them so they're not like a villain that just keeps like, or I don't know.
But there
like,
are already theories going around that he's like faked his death and we'll see him again. So
I know.
I kind of wish that is not the case. But I thought, so the big bar scene, like from the second they played this card of like, oh, Mysterio is a hero, it's like, well, he's clearly summoning these monsters through magic or whatever, and to make himself look good. And like they did find a unique way to slightly remix that thing that felt telegraphed. And then, you know, the big reveal in the bar, like incredibly exposition-y, but I think Jake is such a good actor that he just about made that work.
Yeah.
And it was cute the way they like tied it all in with like past stuff in the MCU. And
when you said cute, were your hands making quotation marks? Because mine were.
I thought it was like, okay, fair enough. I didn't see that coming. Fair play to you.
Cute.
Yeah, cute. You know. I thought the Mysterio like nightmare sequences were the big one with like, you know, the zombie Iron Man and the many Peters. I thought that was the best scene in the movie and one of the coolest.
You know,
things
it was
they've
interesting.
done in a while.
That reminded me of watching Spider-Man the animated series.
Yeah,
and it was so jarring because they've never done anything like that. I don't think I feel negatively about it. It was more just like I have to acknowledge just how jarring it was to do a scene like that.
But this is the kind of stuff
films.
that people are like daring Marvel to do more of, you know, like
get
a bit visually different, get a bit trippy, and I kind of wish there was a bit more Mysterio and a bit less. Well, again, I don't hate the kids in Europe stuff. It's just I really liked where they took Mysterio after that, and like, you know, I like that he's wearing like a mocap suit that the actual actors wear for these fucking movies, and the degree to which he was like staging his scenario and safely up on the bridge the whole time. I thought all that was pretty cool. And the way they did the spider sense at the end, I'll say as well, because I mean we're so used to that, like, you know, flashing stuff around him to show that he can sense it, and then just to do it as like a quick like I wasn't even immediately sure what the hell was going on. He just suddenly grabs him. I thought that was like a good way to show spider sense with the death at the end. But
to me, how I interpret it is that bar scene is kind of amazing in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Everything before it and everything after it felt kind of stock. His fake hero stuff was like sinfully stupid and boring. And again, not a criticism, because that was clearly like their intention, and I think possibly it was worth it. And then everything after that became very two-dimensional very, very quickly after the bar scene at least hinted at some signs of nuance there. You know it's not really going there, but when they tease nuance and don't deliver it, it's just kind of frustrating.
I will say that while I've said on this podcast and all over the internet that I prefer this vision of Spider-Man to the previous ones we've had, not counting Spider-Verse, because that almost feels like a separate thing, and it's great. But I will say that the one area I feel that these two films that have been in the MCU are lagging behind is sort of big, over-the-top action sequences. Like, I felt the fights with, like, the fire elemental and stuff, I thought that was really just not that interesting. And for as flawed as some of those movies are in places, they did get right the like giant stupid comic book movie fight stuff, because they're going for like he's just starting out and I guess he will ramp up to these bigger things. But in terms of just like directing an action scene, I feel that is a place where they are a little bit weaker.
I mean, there's just also just not that much for them to do, like with what they have. Like they've purposely limited what they can physically do with their action scenes by, I mean, if anything, it was like almost, I thought it was like part of the joke of how boring the elementals were. I'm not going to give them a lot of credit for parodying themselves because like it's still them. I'm not going to give them bonus points for doing a fake bad job when they've done a lot of real bad jobs.
But I also don't think the fight with Mysterio at the end is that good either.
No, it's not. That's my point. That's like nothing they've really, like they've kind of like painted themselves into a corner so that the only thing they can really hang their hat on is the stuff with the kids. And I think that stuff works.
Yeah, I think
I really enjoy that stuff.
Yeah, the heart and soul of this new version is like a very strong class ensemble, and Thank God they all conveniently blipped, so they're all still together. But
yeah, right.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of stuff to mine from this group. I don't know if they're doing 4 films, but they're certainly. I think they're just doing 3. Is the idea? Because...
Yeah, I think they've switched to just doing 3. I think the original rumor was 4 films, 4 years of high school, and now it's kind of shifted towards not doing.
And the assumption is he's going to fight the whole Sinister Six or whatever. But I mean, they haven't really done a huge. I mean, they're all in play. Like, across Homecoming alone, I think you get 4 of them in there. So they're sort of subtly there, but I don't know, to suddenly go, and here's the Sinister Six would be a bit jarring. And there's no Doc Ock, obviously, who's like the Spider-Man villain. So, I don't know, maybe they do want to do 4 in the end, or maybe they want to do 3 Spider-Man solo movies and then do some sort of big dumb team up with Venom against the Sinister Six, which will suck probably, but hey. Like, I cannot fathom them putting Venom and Tom Holland Spider-Man together, but they will probably do it.
Yeah, I hadn't heard the Sinister Six rumor. If that is for real, then I think they need 2 more movies to make that feel earned.
Yeah. Well, they've been dancing around, Sony have been dancing around that since Andrew Garfield was there, and, you know, they wanted to do a whole Sinister Six movie and build a universe, and that all got killed. But then Homecoming has, you know, Scorpion and Vulture and Shocker and someone else, I think. And then, you know, Mysterio's here, and I feel they will make some attempt to do it. And as I said, maybe they'll save it for like a Venom and Spider-Man and someone else versus the Sinister
I mean, but
Six.
let's be real, like, Sony obviously has some agency on this. Like, if Marvel doesn't want it to happen, it's not happening.
Sony can make any movie they want. They
can make any movie they want. Maybe legally they can. I don't think anything happens without Marvel's full consent.
Yeah, it's like the whole Marvel Spider-Man Venom crossover stuff. Like, Feige's very like, yeah, I'm sure they'll do it, because like they are like distancing themselves from their vision of Venom, and it's like, if they make it, that's their thing, but the real quote unquote Spider-Man is the one we're making. But I don't know, we'll see what happens there. But, you know, I love Zendaya a lot. I thought she was great here. She got even more to do than she did in Homecoming, and I just thought it was a very like true to life little romance between them. It wasn't overdone. It was like just the two of them being a bit awkward, and it's nice to see her being kind of awkward as well, but in a realistic way, I guess.
As someone whose job it is to be around 16, 18-year-olds, I can assure you that a lot of the actions taken in this movie were very true to life, for better and for worse.
To me, I know she isn't getting a huge amount, but I think she is doing a better job than Kirsten Dunst was.
I mean,
Emma Stone got some good stuff, but Emma Stone was also largely playing what audiences perceive to be herself.
I mean, I guess like we probably actually, because I don't think there's really not a lot to talk about with this movie, honestly. It's probably at this point, it's like comparing what's come before it, and it's probably the most interesting thing that could happen. To me, it's obviously this is the best set of Spider-Man movies.
I think so.
I don't even really think it's a question. No. I think you take the charm, you take all the good parts, mostly of all of them, and you limit the bad parts of all of them.
I do think, as we said, like, they owe us like a big fucking goofy action scene in the third one. But other than that, yeah, like I think the acting is better. I think the direction and the sort of style of it is really a lot better. And like, you know, Raimi was kind of, he's going for like hammy and sort of over the top. So I'll forgive him that. It's just that's not really my cup of tea in the same way that something like this is. This has a very youthful, authentic energy to me, and I respond to that far more than I do a Sam Raimi movie.
Yeah, I mean, like, they actually look and feel like teenagers. Like, they're not 45 years old playing teenagers. I mean, like, I know that's an exaggeration. Yeah, I mean, we've obviously talked about it at length, but, the Raimi films are just not for me. I think that there's one thing I appreciate about them is that they're, like, a very specific author's vision, which we don't... That's probably the one positive from them that we don't have in this one, which is that this feels very much conformed to the MCU vision.
Yeah.
Which, means we laugh a lot in the theater and things like that, but like, there doesn't have that individual author voice that I think Spider-Man would benefit from.
And that is more present in Into the Spider-Verse, I would say.
Yeah. it's kind of weird that like Samuel L. Jackson's back to being all in Marvel.
Yeah, I know. It
But I
felt
guess-
like they were quietly trying to break up with him because of money, and then surprise, he's bigger
all
than
over
ever.
the place all of a sudden. It's more of a topic for you and Ben. I'm not.
Well, no,
really
you give
worthy
your-
of-
You give your thoughts on it. I'm just saying I don't want to repeat
No,
myself.
no. It
so.
should not. It should absolutely not been the focus of this. They really don't want to give Colby Smulders anything to do. It's such
I
a
know,
kind
it's
of
very strange.
weird.
It feels like they cast her in Avengers and then decided they hate her, but she's got a contract, so they'll
But
put
like
her
at
in
this
it.
point, her contract can't possibly.
No,
her
I-
original contract can't possibly still be going.
I wouldn't have thought so either, but they keep putting her in a movie for like a minute or 30 seconds and giving her fuck all to do.
Probably
Good
her
thing-
second most screen time after Winter Soldier, but like she did nothing.
Yeah. The only thing she did in this that stood out to me was when she was like, I gotcha, after she fired the rocket launcher. And it's like, that's 5 seconds, but...
It wasn't even her character.
Yeah, true. I really like that Peter, like, scienced his way to victory at the end. Him exploiting the Mysterio, the drone, and like cobbling together a little shield and all of that. I thought that was a nice little beat that, you know, he is a genius in a less flashy way than a Tony or whoever, but I thought that was a nice beat. I like, you know, it's on the nose, obviously, but him basically doing the Iron Man 1 stuff with the Jarvis and the, you know, building the suit with the holographic tech and all that. I thought that was quite nice, and Jon Favreau looking on at him wistfully.
We need one scene of Jon Favreau saying Tony was my best friend, and then someone saying you were Iron Man's best friend. It was like, well, I don't know if I was his best friend, but he was my best friend. Like, and that would just cover so much territory and make it so okay that he's involved in these. Like, we just need someone to point out that Tony was his best friend, but he wasn't Tony's best friend, and that will make me feel a lot better about how heavily he involved is at this point.
Yes, that is fair.
I mean, I think probably a big thing happening in this movie that is not immediately clear is that there is some big plan for the main franchise in the MCU, the Avengers. They were not available to deal with this problem, with the Elementals problem. Samuel L. Jackson is in a giant spaceship. Ben Mendelsohn blissfully returns for one gorgeous scene of Ben Mendelsohn's. He's a Kree.
He's a Skrull.
Is he a Kree? He's a Skrull.
Yeah. Kree are white, black, or blue. Skrulls are all green.
Sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. So there's something going on there.
Yeah.
I guess it's intriguing. I'm mildly curious. I mean, we don't. There's a Marvel movie coming out in 6 months, and we know nothing about it. We don't know what it is.
Ben and I are holding off on reviewing until, you know, all of those announcements get made at Comic-Con, because
we don't
the
know
future
anything
is
about it.
blank. And this was, I'll give it to them, like after Endgame it was like, well, what's Spider-Man going to do that's going to have any impact on the overall Marvel Universe? And it's like, to be fair to them, quite a lot apparently. I could have done with some more Marissa Tomei, personally, and I'm sure they cut a lot of her scenes for, you know, pre-leaving for Europe. Because obviously the first one ending with her finding out he's Spider-Man and then she's just cool with it in this one. I'm not saying I needed to, like, see the immediate aftermath of her finding that out and gradually accepting it, but I don't know, I could have done with an extra scene or two of those two together. And
funny to do a joke where someone says, "Oh my God, you look amazing. You blipped." It's like, nope, still here for 5 years. Just look amazing. I don't know.
What a queen.
One more quick funny thing. So they do that fake, or not fake, but the in memoriam video for the Avengers. And in the theater, huge applause for Tony.
Yeah.
Huge applause for Captain America.
Yeah.
I would say the very least polite applause for Black Widow.
A smattering.
And then they show a vision, and people are like, what? Huh? Who's that? Oh, right.
Viz.
Let's clap it up for Vision.
Everyone's favourite Vision.
How do you not do that in reverse order?
I know. Like, they did do the, like, student TV stuff in the first one, but I don't think they ever, like, filled the screen with it. And I thought it was, like, a nice little, you know, like the kids swearing and stuff, and just it being so shitty, and yeah.
I'm telling you, I think these movies are just kids' movies that should have very, very minimal superhero stuff in them.
That's what I'm saying. Freaks and Geeks on Disney Plus with Martin Starr. It's all perfect. Or written
it's
by...
fine. It's a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's a 2-hour movie. Two big action scenes, or three, like a quick teaser action scene, a big one in the middle, a big one at the end, and everything else is just the kids. I think that is the ideal way to go forward.
Sure.
Personally speaking.
Well then. I don't really have a lot on it. You consider that we did 3 Spider-Man movies in one podcast episode and stuff, and now it's like we're doing 20-minute episodes on individual movies. I still feel good about, Marvel's vision of Spider-Man compared to the other ones. And
yeah, I mean, like, they had to get away from Sony.
Jameson being back is huge to that and making it... I mean, there's a reason they never
I didn't get the
recast
feeling
him.
he's, like, going to be a big part of it.
No, maybe not, but it's nice that he...
Yeah.
Is back, and like that they never even attempted to recast that dude, and
as they never should have.
Yeah,
like clearly one person can ever play J. Jonah Jameson, and it's J.K. Simmons, and that was a huge applause. That was probably one of the loudest moments I've ever had in a movie theater.
I look forward to where they go from here. I would imagine we'll probably get some kind of animated Spider-Man film before we get a third one of these. We can
watch all the Blade episodes in Spider-Man.
Yeah, and you can...
okay, but I guess we didn't actually talk about probably the most important thing, which is how do we feel about Spider-Man being unmasked going forward?
Yeah, because he's like Captain Secret Identity, really, and... obviously they feel that secret identities are kind of played out, but you kind of figure Spider-Man would be the one dude to cling on to it. But like as you said, like they felt very repetitive, and I think a big part of that is the secret identity. So I guess it is a very different direction to take it. But like they unmasked him in the comics for a huge event a few years ago, and then it sucked, and they immediately reversed it. And I'm not saying they'll do that here, but like I don't see how the next thing they do isn't just a great big giant the villain goes after MJ type thing. And
it feels like a big shock that has written themselves into a corner.
A little bit. Like, I really hope they wrote this with a plan of where to go with it, not just the next film, but potentially past that, because if they just thought, this would be cool, without a huge plan, then they're in some trouble. There's speculation that, he needs a good lawyer, and Marvel can use Daredevil in 2020 and onwards, but I don't know about that.
It just feels like unmasking Peter is an endgame move, pun not intended. Tom Holland has been in approximately 800 films of Spider-Man at this point in the last 3 years, so it feels like he's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
But really, we're just getting to know Spider-Man and just getting to know Tom Holland Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So it feels like we're in the middle of his story. And not at the end. So I'm a little concerned. I could see the comedic vision of what it will look like when he's in high school as unmasked.
And the stuff with Flash, with him,
yeah,
loving Spider-Man, hating Peter, and where they go with that.
Now it's just so blatant. The person's going to go after his friends and family.
And I really don't like the trope of like Peter and MJ having to break up because he's Spider-Man. Like, I kind of wish those kids could just work it out.
If they go in that direction, that's going to be really sad.
Let's have some faith. Let's hope that they had a plan when they did this, and we'll see what that plan ends up being. But
I'm confident they have a plan. I'm not confident it's going to be a plan that meets my expectations. And my expectations are it should be good.
Your expectations are lofty, Mike Thomas. We would expect nothing less from the premiere in podcasting and dumb listicles, EnterTheRealWorld.com. 200 episodes. Huge. 3 years.
200 episodes.
I know.
I still have not listened back to the Dark Phoenix podcast. I'm afraid I sound like a jerk on it.
I think it was actually ultimately entertaining, even if it was arduous for me to record. But yeah, go listen to that now, EnterTheRealWorld.com, Mike and Matt's Excellent Adventures, and listen to everything we got going. Me and Ben, we have our podcast, There Will Be Movies. I don't know how quickly I'm going to get this up, but we'll have probably done Almost Famous and Memento, and maybe it's Training Day time, I don't know. Some of our favourite movies from the decade 2000 to 2009. That podcast will go on for years and years. Mike, please don't shut the website down. And you should do more things. Look out for Mike Thomas writing stuff.
I got some ideas, but
okay.
Nothing I'm gonna. I think this is the year I finally have the Sopranos Christopher Columbus episode ready for Columbus Day weekend. I've been working on this for like 7 years.
Your magnum opus. Okay, well,
and then basically what happens is every year, all of a sudden it's Columbus Day, and I'm like, fuck, I don't have time to write this properly, and then I don't. Fingers crossed, this will be the year.
Yeah, let's get that day off the calendar, everyone, but let's enjoy that piece from Mike Thomas when he writes it. You've really fucked yourself this time because it's on record now that you want to do it. Unless you've publicly shared that that's a plan before, I don't know.
I probably said I've wanted to write something before, but I really hope this is the year I remember to do it, because it's a
you do
really
as well.
fucking funny episode, and historically it's considered the worst episode of the show, and I think it's ridiculous.
Perfect.
And it really annoys me.
Well, look out for that on entertherealworld.com. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Big Spideas, one of the only ones I've ever done without any notes. Can you tell from how loose and unorganised it feels? Thanks for listening, everyone. Goodbye. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for listening to Great Spideas.